OMG, baby, tell him.
Hey there, welcome to One Take, powered by Backers. I'm here with Deborah Crowe. Deborah, thank you very much, or Deb, I guess. Thank you very much for joining me on the show today.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So you are joining us from the lovely city of London, Ontario. So welcome. I think we've had a couple people on from London. It's not like it's that far away, but it's sort of the other city, I guess. The other city? Like, would it be Toronto, Ottawa, London? Like, how
do you guys? I think it'd be like Ottawa, Toronto, London, Windsor.
Ottawa's number one?
Well, it's our capital, so I kind of put it up there, right?
Okay, I joke when I talk to people all over Canada. It's like, I'm from Toronto, very Toronto centric. I realize the rest of Canada thinks we only think about Toronto.
Yeah.
And we think the world, we're the center of the universe, which probably isn't far off from the truth. No, I'm kidding. I'm joking. But London's a beautiful city. We were just talking about hosting an event potentially out there. I think COVID definitely different sort of than sort of the lockdown we're in here in Toronto. So how is it out in London? What's it like out there?
Our numbers have gone up in the last couple of weeks.
Okay.
And like you, I normally have a big event once a year.
Okay.
And it would have been 2 weeks ago, and I had to basically make that call in April.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, so we are we're kind of creeping up a little bit, but you know what? Everybody's doing their part and staying home and washing our hands and wearing our mask when we go to the grocery store.
Right, exactly. Like I said, it's the COVID suit and tie. I'm wearing shorts and a t-shirt in the solarium here. So anyways, welcome to the show. I'll do a quick little bio so everyone knows who you are. And I'll sort of read quickly here. So you're an executive and business coach, 30 years of global experience in top Fortune 500 companies in Canada, the US, Europe, Asia, and Australia, leading and coaching C-suite leaders, executive professionals, teams, and businesses into a success. So we'll talk about a lot of this. One of the things that I think is interesting that kind of talking a little bit about being a community builder and volunteer, hiker, traveler, yogi, wife, mom, sister, and friend in your spare time. So that's interesting. And then sort of the last part that I think is interesting that I potentially struggle with is self-care, ensuring that it's your life first and foremost. So obviously as a coach, that is important for anyone kind of at any level, but definitely if you're pushing yourself in a sort of business venture endeavor, trying to climb the ladder, even in a major corporation, you often burn the candle at both ends, as they say. Up early, bed to bed late, out maybe participating, maybe not with COVID, I guess, but definitely there's an unhealthy lifestyle that comes with certain endeavors. So I don't know if you want to start there, but tell us, welcome to the show, obviously. I do this choose your own adventure. So maybe we'll do the choose your own adventure at some point. We'll start it right now. Do you want to talk about that aspect?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
No,
perfect.
I think it's a great conversation starter. We grew up in the generation that you finish high school, you go to university, and then you get a job and you work your way up, like you said, the proverbial ladder.
Right.
And I think what COVID has kind of brought to the forefront is burnout and fatigue and going on a short-term disability claim don't belong in the same sentence anymore. And becoming an executive, there's always a price to pay.
Right.
And I see it in the executives that I coach with. They're extremely lonely. They don't have a lot of people to talk to because everyone below them wants their job.
Right.
They usually have one or more
health. It's sort of like that like people are like nipping at sort of your feet or at your heels, right?
Well,
Take.
you're there, like you're at the top, whether you're at the C-suite level, or even I see it sometimes within a culture on an executive leadership or management team.
Right.
And there's a price to always pay to be paid with success.
Right.
And it's usually, your mood, your mental health, your overall health, relationships, marriage breakdowns. And the millennials are really changing that. I'm seeing like this 1950 generalization of, mom and dad are home having dinner with the kids. So the work is getting done. It just may not get done within the frame time of 9 to 5.
Right.
So COVID's really opened up flexibility, adaptability, and it's hard. But I think a lot of people are either feeling really sad and depressed, depending on their own situation, which I get, especially
lonely is probably, a lot of people are feeling lonely because now
there's no connectivity, right? Like this is great, but most people are Zoomed out.
Yeah.
Webinared out. And I mean, we're heading into November. It's been a long, long time.
And it's going to be a cold, dark winter for some people, right? A gloomy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And if you're an extrovert, this is super hard for you.
I think that's why I created this show. It just gives me a chance every day to talk to somebody new about just randomness and have fun, right? So
absolutely,
this is my therapy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think like anything else, it's the mindset that you bring. It's not something we're going to change or be done with next week. So how can you foster that daily mindset of positivity? Like you said, you created this show, you're having fun, you're meeting lots of people.
Right.
You have to find what works for you.
Yeah, an outlet, definitely. It's interesting. So when you're talking I guess I'll ask two-part question. How has business been for you? Like, are you finding that people are more receptive to kind of coaching or less receptive, or like, where does that go? And then, go ahead and answer that.
This year's been incredible. Coaching is a vital service, and think about being at the helm of a company and COVID hits. It's not like they can call somebody up or run to the filing cabinet and pull out, a pandemic file on, okay, here's what we do.
It didn't exist. So
they've had to do two things. They've had to be open. They've had to be vulnerable. They've had to say to their team, their staff, I don't know. I'm providing you with the information that I have at this time. And they've had to do a better job at modeling self-care.
Right. So then I guess, so the answer is, you said, yes, it's been good. People are reaching out, obviously. So I guess my question too, then so if somebody does reach out, what does that look like from a coaching perspective? So, I mean, I run a company, Backers. We were building out a software platform. We were kind of just in the kind of launch phase this time last year. And, we were kind of rolling things along across winter into 2020. And then, we had to make some major adjustments and start to kind of look, did I freeze? Yep. We had to kind of look to some shifts. So what are you saying? Like, what is the, maybe the advice or the wisdom that you're passing on to these individuals, or how does that look when somebody comes to you and says, hey, Deb, I need help? Like, what, or do they say that? Do people come to you and say, I need help? Or what does that even look like?
I don't know that it's always framed necessarily, because sometimes we don't know what we don't know.
Yes.
People are usually referred to me. I'm going into my 10th year, so my practice has organically grown. Coaching this year has been an even more vital service than it was pre-COVID.
Right.
Because there's more emotional support that's needed, because everyone is at home. And so when people talk about work-life balance, I never thought that to be an existing thing. I always coined it to be a lifestyle, not a trend.
Right.
And it's more like work-life integration. Well, we're not leaving our house now to work. So we are at home. We are remotely working at home. So it's just reframing that. It's helping people with their habits of thinking. It's being able to track what the triggers are, what's upsetting, what's making them feel down, just finding all the things and putting a little bit of a system or a process to it. And then kind of unpacking that. And I do that over a 6-month period with my executives. But what we've done differently since March 11th is we've had more touch points. There's been more phone calls, even if they're like 10 or 15 minutes, text messages. Sometimes they just need to call your voicemail and have a little vent. So giving them different modalities to communicate in between sessions has been really vital. And they know that that connectivity is there for them.
Right. Interesting. So it's almost just being like, I've said this word a few times actually lately, like a sounding board, right? Just somebody to kind of be there that's not necessarily tied to their life and sort of, what's around them, maybe family, friends, employees, staff, coworkers, whatever, clients, but somebody who's maybe that impartial sounding board to kind of have that conversation. And I would think, while you probably can't disclose other people's situations, I would think you could definitely say things along the lines, or maybe I'm putting words in your mouth, but can you say things like, hey, over here, or I was just talking to somebody else in kind of a certain situation, they're kind of looking at it maybe from this angle. Like, does that, by having multiple people all in sort of the same type of situation, are you able to kind of take sort of one win and sort of show it to somebody else as maybe an option that they could look at? Or how does that, do you do that? Maybe I'm reading into what you do,
I do it a couple of ways. I frame it in a way that I don't breach confidentiality, I also keep really abreast about what other Fortune 500 companies are doing that go public and talk about it. So right now, the big leadership kind of question is the reentry, because you're in Toronto, I'm in London, different cities, different provinces, different countries, everybody's on a different phase, a different protocol based on their leadership, right?
Right.
So it's having conversations of, is there other companies in our sector and what are they doing? So they just
comparables almost,
well, they almost want the liaison of kind of, let's mastermind around what are they doing it? How are they doing it? What is the cost of reentry? What does that look like? But more important, they're putting their people in the forefront to make sure that the health and well-being of their staff is first and foremost. They're looking to the leadership of our province and our country to look at the face. They're listening to the health unit. They're listening to epidemiologists talk about this virus and what we should and should not do. And I think on the reentry for school, we've done fairly well, but there's still a lot of lingering fear there. And at the end of the day, people are still passing away from this. It's very sad.
Right. It's definitely, there definitely is, try to avoid the political side here. I think there's definitely a major disease. I think this is my opinion, so onemansopinion.com, as they say. The initial maybe reaction went a little too far, and then they pulled back a little too far the other way. And now, so they're trying to sort of, I think, find maybe a medium ground there, which is difficult because, like you said, there's so many people with so many sort of insights or people coming from all different angles with their own perspectives. Like I was reading an article on, I think it was the Restaurants Canada or Canadian Restaurant Association or something along those lines. Basically, they represent 40 some odd thousand restaurants across Canada, which is, they're being heavily hit. And their whole thing is that, they feel like they're being sort of targeted because, obviously it's a gathering place and there's, your food and but they feel like they've also stepped up significantly, as a industry to meet and maybe exceed sort of the health guidelines and expectations. So there's a lot of uncertainty around there. I guess what are, if I could ask you to put on a prognosticator hat, what are some of the leaders that you talk to? Again, not to reveal names, but what are some of them, and what are some people in those industries? Like, where do they see this going?
I think right now they're putting their people first.
Right.
They're ensuring that they're fostering a positive, healthy culture. The leadership team has an even more open door policy. And I think that there's a new check-in that we've migrated to. So instead of someone saying to you, hey, Justin, how are you doing? It's being rephrased to how are you feeling? Is there any barriers or anything distracting you today? How can I support you? So knowing what the deliverables are, what jobs need to get done, still adhering to customer service and guidelines to productivity of what needs to get done to meet the deadline.
Right.
I just think there's a softer approach amongst the companies and the leaders that I'm working with. And they're really taking the time to lean in and say, how are you feeling?
Right.
Because
sort of an empathy. There's an empathy 100%. There, right?
Yeah. And it's the whole heart-centered leadership piece, which is why I started my podcast, because leaders were saying, I don't know like what to say, how about you just be open and vulnerable and use all those soft, heart-centered leadership trait skills.
Right.
Because leaders don't know everything. And a lot of support staff think because they have the title, the role, the responsibility, the fancy corner office, they don't know everything. They're
people too.
They're
right?
people too.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's we all wear this wall of resistance on our chest. So it's being able to lower that wall of resistance. And at the end of the day, let's just exercise a little bit more of the virtue of patience with each other. Let's be a little bit more open.
Right.
It's okay to say you're not okay. And I mean,
which is hard for people, right?
It is. Absolutely it is. But we all have bad days.
Right. Right. And that's kind of like, I mean, not to go into that, that's a whole other discussion for probably a whole other time, but like, you've got, the whole movement around mental health, which, long before COVID, that was, obviously what was it, Bell Let's Talk Day. And, there's definitely a lot of awareness that was being built up around mental health. Is that something like, how are businesses dealing with that, I guess, in a time like this? Are they giving more holidays or granting sort of more?
Well, they've really adapted to flex time because you're not in the office.
Right.
I was coaching a CEO the other day. She's at her dining room table and 3 feet this way are her kids who she's homeschooling and watching.
Right.
Her husband's using the home office because they only have one home office. The dog's running in, the cat's running in. And she said, all I can do is laugh because what am I going to do? So the companies that I am working with and the leaders I'm working with have indefinitely decided to leave their staff home for 2021.
Oh, really? Okay.
Because
and these are like Fortune 500 type, like major corporations. So they've that's interesting to hear that. So they've sort of blanket another arguably 12, 14 months, I guess, at that point, where they're just going to maintain a work from home for staff.
You have to ensure the safety and well-being of your staff to have a positive, healthy culture.
Right.
And if you think of large companies and you think of the insides of the large companies, there's going to be a large financial undertaking to ensure physical distancing and all the protocols that need to happen inside an office.
So that's going to take that might take all of 2021, right, to get that
100%.
sorted out,
and it's turned into another mini project, above and beyond day-to-day operations.
Right.
And it's been interesting because there's many companies that are on several continents. So just dealing with some of the barriers that they have on a good day. But I can say that productivity is up for most of my clients. Their staff is happy. And you know what? You're in shorts and a t-shirt as long as the work
Well,
is getting work is getting done, because
exactly.
you need to have that compassion and empathy.
Right.
I mean, I have my youngest daughter still at home here. University's all online for her. Everybody's in a different experience with COVID because
Right.
we're all in different stages of our life.
It depends on who you have around you and what's going on in your life, for sure.
I've seen some leadership has taken a 20 to 30% pay cut.
Okay.
In order for everybody to save their job,
to
which
maintain.
I thought was really commendable.
Yeah.
And everybody's just keeping that light at the end of the tunnel lit. It's dim some days, but we know we'll come out on the other side of this because we're listening to the leaders, we're adhering, we're being, compliant to what we should be doing. I mean, I've got out of the car a few times to run in the grocery store and I'm like, oh, I forgot my mask, because it's not our normal, even though it has been our normal, but we get in our to-do list.
Right?
Yeah.
It's interesting. Like I literally get in our parking garage here. I literally get out of the bed. I'm like, I'm at the elevator and then I read the giant sign that says face. And I'm like, oh shit. Am I going to go all the way back to the car? I'm already, whatever. But yeah, I mean, we're all slowly probably adapting to it. I mean, I have two little sons, JK in grade 2. And, it's funny watching all the JKs stand on 6 foot apart dots, like in a sort of grid of 24 kids, all like face masks, sort of just standing there, not allowed to like play with each other or talk or, so it's sort of a different than, a few years ago. The older son was in that same scenario and it was like all the parents were in that yard, all the, kids are just running all over. So it's definitely at every level, it's definitely changed. So it's interesting that way. So I'm going to go a different route here. Brock University.
Yes.
I went to Brock University as well.
It's a great school.
Great. Now, so you were there right around the same time I was there. I see like 98 to 2002.
Yes.
Did you go, did you go ahead? Sorry.
I went back to school later in life.
Okay.
I was at university and my dad passed away when I was 21.
Sorry to hear.
Yeah, so I had to take a break, unfortunately, because that was a hard thing at 21.
Right.
And so I went back after I had my kids in my 30s.
Oh, okay. So I was going to say you weren't partying or in residence.
No, I was driving back and forth.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say, because
I was in your shoes. I was in your shoes with little kids doing the commute.
Okay. Yeah. So there you go. So you didn't hang out at Isaac's or go to Big Bucks down at the bottom of the hill.
No, I was the mature student.
Okay. So I was going to go just ask your experience, but you were there arguably the same time I was there. And so let's talk about Brock, because I think you're the very first guest. This is about the 73rd episode we've done of now it's called One Take, powered by Backers. But I started this literally the week COVID started. I was like,
good for you.
Let's do this. Initially it was called Ask the Experts. I thought it'd be a great way to just bring in people. Then we changed it to Powered by Backers. And then because we do it all in one take, I don't edit anything. We decided to call it One Take. But Brock went through a lot of changes while I was there. And I think you were there 1 year extra and you would have seen the new complex kind of be built and finished.
I did, yes.
In sort of in 02, right?
Yes.
The phys ed kind of, or like gym rec complex. So what are your thoughts on Brock and maybe where it's going?
It's interesting because my last exam was the morning of 9/11.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
So you did summers, like into summer school?
Yep. So we had just started our exam. Wow. And the dean walked in and he said, turn your papers over and put your pencils down. And they wheeled in these carts with TVs and we're all kind of going, what's going on? And my heart just sunk.
Wow.
And he goes, who lives within 2 hours? So everybody's kind of like, because we were from all over.
Right. Yeah.
And he said, you need to go now. And I remember driving home and it was like gridlock on the QEW.
Wow.
And it seemed
Did you
like
go to London? Were you in London? Going back to London?
I was going back to London because we were like, if you were in 2 hours, get out of here, get out of here right now.
Yeah.
And it was like being in a movie, and it's like, everyone knows where they were.
Yeah.
And I remember getting home and I was just like, oh my God. And it was like, you're all just going to get a pass grade because this is horrible. Like,
wow.
We just want to ensure safety. And the prof that they had brought over for this one particular course was from Wales. Okay. And he always instilled humor. So he's like, where's the nearest Walmart? Because I don't have enough briefs to be here for another week. And he literally did not get home for 2 weeks.
Wow.
So it was a really
that's interesting. That's in an exam, your final exam of university, the morning of 9/11. Mine's not such a fun story, like not so interesting. I graduated, I guess, only just a few months prior in April of sort of 90, I guess, sorry, of 01, I mean. And I was actually working at a job, Premier Fitness, sort of irrelevant, but my alarm was the radio. And so it was right around when I was waking up. And so I hear sort of like in the background, like, plane hit, and then I press snooze. And then it, 7 minutes later or whatever, the next part is like another plane. I was like, am I dreaming? So I got up to kind of go watch on the TV, but yeah, it was, that's crazy though. So you ended up, everyone just got a passing mark. What did you take at Brock?
I was in community rehab. It's a disability management certificate, which they've now migrated to an undergrad. So
okay, cool.
We all got kind of grandfathered in, all of us middle-aged folks, but that's what it was back then. So
did you do any work across the street at the rehab center there?
No, but the Ontario Brain Injury Association added in curriculum because I wanted to go the neurotrauma route, which is what I did for 23 years. Okay. And so they were heavily involved in working with some of the profs and the dean and curriculum development. So it was a fun experience.
Right. Because I did phys ed, and we did. I think there was one of the courses was disabilities. And then it was around neuroscience and some of the, like, I guess, neurotrauma, stuff like that. So I actually did volunteer work with the kids at the trauma center across the street there.
Oh,
nice. It must have all changed.
Yes.
It was like in pool and out of pool and stuff like that.
That's
I don't
lovely.
know if it's all there now, but yeah, because part of our program was a lot of like volunteer work in the community. So I did phys ed, went back and did an MBA. So I'm not doing phys ed right now or anything related to it, but it was good times back in 97, 98.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it was a great school. And I'm sure, so you went on to then to Ivy, right?
I did. I went on to Ivy. They had, it was almost like an on-ramp to do your MBA, but again, I had little kids. Okay. So it was a 1-year entrepreneur, which was like a fast track MBA, if you will. Okay. And it was fun because I finished that, and then I was invited back as a guest speaker half a dozen times to different courses within the executive MBA program up at Ivy. So it's really enjoyed that program as well.
Cool. So you got back at home. So when I want to just touch on the 9/11. So when you got home, like what you had little kids, right? You said, so you got home, were they, I guess, how little were they? Are we talking like daycare kind of little?
5 and 3.
So you got home, you had to pick them up at, from daycare kind of, or school, I guess.
Well, my husband, actually the school called in the morning when it happened. So my husband basically had to pick them up and take them to grandma, and then called me because this was just the beginning of cell phones, right?
Right, yeah.
So
I don't even know if I had a cell phone.
I had one of those big.
Yeah.
And I remember he called and said, come to my mom's. He's like, I'm sure you've heard. And I said, yes, they just told us to leave.
Canceled your exam. Yeah.
Yeah. So no, all the school, everything shut down here, like City Hall, everybody from work was sent home. Remember, Ottawa went into their, kind of guarded protocol because they didn't know the aftermath. being that it happened in New York City, right?
Right. It's kind of like, I mean, it's 20, what was it, 9/11? So
19
2001,
years
right?
ago.
It's
Yeah.
so we're coming up on,
Yeah.
this will be 2021 will be 20 years.
Yeah.
So interesting. And it almost sort of, similar, not the same thing as COVID, but definitely a major world event that kind of
absolutely
shaped a lot of people's lives. And like you said, everyone kind of remembers where they were on 9/11, right? Or, whether it was significant like yourself or just an alarm being ignored like myself. I remember, though, the one thing I do remember is, again, no cell phone. So I didn't have a cell phone. My parents were both already at work at that point. I started a little later because I worked at the gym. And I remember going in, so I didn't really know what to do. I'm just newly graduated university. There's really no cell phone. So I just went to work, right? And I think I started at maybe 10 o'clock in the morning. And people were like, "Why are you here?" And I was like, I don't know. What else am I going to do, right? I didn't really think to stay home or whatever. And then I started calling people for their appointments. And I remember a guy, I think it was, yelled at me, like, did I not know what was happening in the world? And so at that point I was like, okay, I'm you know what, guys, I'm just going to go home. It doesn't seem like anyone's really, and rightfully so. And maybe I'm heartless. I don't know if that's the scenario. I didn't know what to do, right? You're a 21-year-old, 22-year-old guy is like, go to work. I don't know what, and then I remember my mom coming home at some point. So it's sort of like they had sent everyone home from downtown Toronto. So she kind of came home at one point. It was sort of like, it starts to kick in, but literally you wake up, you see a quick sort of news clip. To me, it was major watching planes flying into buildings, but I wasn't sure what that really meant in a grander scheme of things, right?
Exactly.
I've probably revealed how immature and ignorant I was at 22, but I've learned a lot over the years. I guess is that my apology for what I just said on air?
You know what, I think it's we can compare it to COVID. Everybody has their own perception and they're allowed to have their own emotions for how they're going to process and react to it. And that's again where we need to be open and not judging how other people are doing, because a lot of people are not coping well with this.
Yeah.
And whether they had mental health or not, or this has exacerbated that, it's not our place to judge because we don't know the journey or the trajectory that they're on.
Right, exactly. It's hard to know what other people are thinking. And a lot of people, I mean, myself included, maybe deflect or sort of, it's hard to kind of get at the core of how they really potentially are feeling.
Yeah.
So it's
I try and stay in a place of gratitude. If we have our health and we're happy and we're in our home with our family and our loved ones and we're doing the best we can every day and we got food, to me, that's pretty good.
That's pretty good. Yeah, no, I definitely have seen the being appreciative of everything you just said, right? I mean, for us, we young family, when does two working professionals that's probably the sentence doesn't make sense, but whenever have two working professionals had 6 months to spend with their 3.5 and 6-year-old son, pretty much like on,
24/7.
24/7. Like, I mean, sure, I'm on calls, I'm doing different things, but I don't.
You're there.
It's not the drop off at 7 o'clock. To daycare and then pick up at 6. Eat dinner, bath, go to bed, and get back up and do it all over again.
Do it all again.
It's there definitely has been so very appreciative of that aspect as well. So definitely. It's funny because I actually had mentioned early in the year that I wanted to take this summer. I felt like it was kind of just before the younger one went to JK that we'd take them out of daycare and maybe they could stay with me a lot of the time. And that came true for a lot longer period of time. But anyways, so Deborah, because it's in both
I answered both.
Yes. Okay, perfect. So I'll say, Deb, thank you very much for joining me. I ended with one question. I'm going to give you the one question. It's sort of two parts. You can choose either way or both.
Okay.
If there was one word that you would give as a piece of advice to a younger you or somebody starting out, what would that word be? And if you were at sort of the brink, maybe falling off a cliff in a tornado, what would sort of your last words be to maybe your family or loved ones or the world in general?
So the word I would give to a younger person is start.
Start. Okay. Yeah.
Whatever you're thinking of doing, just do it. Just start.
Get it done.
If I was falling off a cliff, I would tell my family I love them, and I'd look up and say it's been a great ride.
Somebody asked me that. Mine was very. I love you. It's been good.
Yeah.
It's that's
I live life to the fullest every day and by my own design, and whenever my time will come, I will not look back with regret, because I've lived a very happy, purposeful life.
Awesome. And then the start is right on point. I mean, we talk about getting started, and kind of other people have answered that question with the same word would be jump in both cases. So like jump in or whatever.
Just do it. Just be like Nike. Just do it.
Exactly. So cool. Well, Deb, I really appreciate you joining me. Where can people find you? Obviously, LinkedIn is where we're connected.
Yes.
So they can find you on LinkedIn. Where else?
Yeah.
You mentioned you have a podcast as well.
I do, and it's called Imperfect. The Heart-Centered Leadership Podcast. We're celebrating 6 months of this week. Pretty excited.
Awesome.
But my website is Deb Crowe, and Crowe has an E on the end.com.
So DEBCROWE.com.
Yeah.
Perfect. LinkedIn, and how about like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, anything like that?
Yep. They're all on my website. All the social links are all at the bottom.
Perfect. And Imperfect is the podcast?
Imperfect, the Heart-Centered Leadership Podcast. And it's on all of the it gets recorded and uploaded to Podbean, and then it goes out to all the other platforms.
Cool. 6 months. So how many episodes have you guys done?
50.
So you're right on. There you go. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Cool. Yeah. Well, we'll have to check that out as well. Appreciate you being on here.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me, and congrats on your podcast. Keep going.
Mine's just, so I never know if this is a podcast. It's just video. It goes on YouTube, and
it's whatever you want it to be.
Yeah, this is more, is it a vodcast? I don't know.
Sure. I don't know.
Yeah, let's call it a podcast.
But you know what? Good for you for starting and doing it. And it looks like you're having a lot of fun, and grateful for the invitation.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Have a great day. Everyone else.
You too.
One Take, powered by Backers. I will see you guys again tomorrow.
OMG, baby, tell them.